TDPK Podcasts, Thailand GameChanger, inside the minds of Thailand's innovators. Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to Thailand GameChanger. Today we are joined by Maytwin Pitipornvivat, the CEO and co-founder of BASE Playhouse, and we'll get to that in a second. How are you doing today? And by the way, have you been here before?
No, actually, this is my first time. First of all, it's a pleasure for me to be back here.
Thank you.
Game Changer, Michael.
We've spoken before.
Yes.
But not at length, so I'm happy to have you back. But have you been in this building before, True Digital Park?
This is my first time here.
It's pretty amazing, no?
Yeah, it is very amazing. The ecosystem is all there and it's huge.
It's huge, and if you look behind you, they're doubling down and building another building almost exactly the same.
Totally amazing.
I love being here. And thank you so much for coming. There are always some logistical problems in the midst of COVID, so it's really great to see you face to face. I think these conversations are actually better in person.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And just for the audience, can you give us a little bit of your background for some context?
Okay, so my background is in totally engineering at first. So I'm graduated from Bachelor of Engineering at Chulalongkorn University.
Not surprising.
In Thailand, yeah. And my major focus was in aerospace engineering field. And after graduation from my bachelor, I pursued my master in United Kingdom, UK.
And studying aerospace engineering
as well.
So I have to ask you this, right? Aerospace engineering is very specific. So is this like a little boy who loves airplanes, or is it like your dad was a pilot? Like, how did that happen?
It was exactly like that. I love airplane.
Really?
And especially military aircraft.
Really?
Yeah, that is the main reason why I joined aerospace engineering, why I was in my bachelor degrees and also pursuing my master.
But why? Like, did you see planes flying around you? Do you know what I mean? When you were a kid and just think, I have to know how those things work.
Yeah. I happen to love engineering because my dad was in engineering as well.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And also because of my movie addiction.
Your movie addiction?
Yeah. I love to see a lot of military aircraft. And because of that, I decided to join that to find out how to design them.
And did you enjoy that when you were studying?
Oh, I loved it. And I still love it.
Do you really?
Yeah.
So what kind of movies did you watch like military airplanes flying? Are you talking about like World War II movies, Top Gun? Like what was it?
Top Gun was one of my favorites.
Really?
Yeah.
But you're too young to know, like, even when Top Gun came out.
My family loved movies.
I love
and it's
this.
like we used to have this Saturday night and Sunday night, the movie night.
At home?
At home.
Did you watch like on a big screen TV at home? Did you go to the movies?
No, it's a big screen TV at home. And my dad loves to bought those DVDs.
I love it.
That thing, yeah.
I love it. It's so great when you hear like a family doing that kind of thing, like Saturday night movie night. It's nice, right?
It was very nice.
Do you have your own family now?
No, not yet.
Not yet, but you'll probably do movie night.
Yes, I do.
And how did you... So you got your bachelor's degree at Chula, right? But you left the country to get your master's degree.
Yes.
Were you always focused on the UK? Did you consider going to the United States? Did you consider going to Australia? What was the reason there?
The first choice that I did is to find the university that is very specialized in aerospace.
Got it. Okay.
And it comes out to be the United Kingdom is my choice. And at that time, I was wanting to study and have my experience in Europe. So
yeah, fair enough.
UK is the
Did you travel a lot when you were in school?
Oh, yes, a lot. I love traveling.
So did you go to Paris and go to Germany and then go to like Vienna?
I did. Oh, Vienna, not yet.
I've never been to Vienna.
I want to be there
so badly.
Yeah.
Like the biggest problem with the pandemic for me has been the lack of travel.
Yeah. It's for me too.
I really wanted to be able to travel, but I'm waiting until things get safer.
Yeah. Let's hope that it would end soon.
So I was reading something earlier that said that the Spanish flu, which was what, 1917, 1918, I can't remember, actually lasted for 4 years.
Wow. That was
Now, I don't know that as a fact, but it feels like a long time to me. And I'm just thinking, if it's 4 years, that means we've got all of, what, 20, 21, 22, and 23?
It seems like a long way to go for us.
It seems like a really long way to go for us. Yeah. But in a way, taking the long view is actually really important. I want to talk a little bit about the engineering because I want to know if when you were in school, you felt like it was drudgery, like this is hard work and I've just got to get through it, or it was just fun to do?
It was actually a fun thing to do for me. well, it was hard.
For sure.
And difficult for sure. But it's intriguing me and inspiring me a lot when I got to know how planes work.
Yeah, it's kind of neat, right?
Yeah, and it keeps me going despite the fact that it's very difficult.
Do you think it's important to have fun when you're learning?
Sure, that I think
you know
that
what I
is the most important thing to be, and I truly believe that, and that is also one of the reasons that I founded BASE Playhouse, which we will go into that later, right?
Yeah, but this is the point. This is the point though that I want to make, right? Is so like I work every day, 7 days a week. I don't really care, and I don't feel like I'm working. And frankly, I studied economics when I was in school. It was difficult, but I never felt like it was hard to overcome, and I never felt like I wasn't having fun. Because I always felt like I was learning something. I took a statistics class, which I thought that was fascinating. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn. Is that fair?
I totally agree with you on that part.
Yeah.
It's really what motivates people to learn in difficult situations.
Yeah. Yeah, and I used to say, even when I was in high school, right, because there were certain kids that were like so interested in rock and roll. Remember, I graduated from high school in 1983, so it was a long time ago. And I always thought that the best teachers were the ones who made the class super interesting.
Yeah.
Right, because you're sitting in calculus class and some kid would raise his hand and say, when am I going to use this in real life? And the teacher would say, okay, here's where you'll use this. And as long as there was like this fun way to use it, it was super cool. And then it was much easier to learn. And I thought for the kids that didn't love learning, it almost made sense to like put history to rock and roll kind of thing.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I myself also had that kind of experience. I think everyone has that kind of teachers in the classroom
Yeah.
to change their life and change their
Absolutely.
perspective.
Absolutely.
And I also have that in my childhood as well.
And you kind of knew the difference, didn't you?
Yes.
Like I can tell you my math teacher when I was a senior in high school. I can still see her. And my chemistry teacher, I loved chemistry. Everybody else hated it. I'm like, wait a second, if I do a little more of this titration, I can make this it was so cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, tell me about the formation of BASE Playhouse, because I think those things are connected, no?
Yes, because when I finished my master in
Yeah.
UK, right, I pursued my own first career in management training.
Where?
It's at Johnson & Johnson.
Oh, okay, interesting. So you went to a consumer goods company.
Yes.
That was interesting though. Why?
Because when I graduated from my master, I think that business is also very important.
Got it.
And I love learning. That's why I turned myself into that area of business. And it is very worth it. It was very worth it. Because I learned a lot about business and also management in that 3 years.
But did you have an expectation when you were studying aerospace engineering that you would actually design airplanes, or was it just like an intellectual challenge for you, both of which are okay, right?
I think it's both.
Really?
Because I was hoping that I would graduate and design my own gas turbine, for example, the aerospace engine, right?
Right.
But because of that, in that time as well, the industry is not quite ready in Thailand.
Got it.
So the other option for me is also to pursue my career path in business.
Right.
But I also still love and keep my background knowledge in aerospace engineering as well.
So were there specific things that you learned or that you remember today from Johnson & Johnson? And to be fair, there are a lot of great MNC positions in Thailand for graduates of great universities, right? And with great degrees. Unilever has a great program here. Pfizer has a great, like there's some great companies here and great Thai companies, right? PTTP, Sing, all these great companies. What do you think you learned from that? And how long were you there?
I was there like 3.5 years.
Okay, that's a while.
Yeah, it's a while.
Yeah.
I learned a lot actually because it's like going into a big ocean. It's like when I was graduated, I was thinking I know everything, right? But when you get to jump,
I remember the feeling.
Yeah,
go ahead.
You just, wow, this is a big whole new thing, new ocean for you, and there's a lot of things for you to learn. And I'm lucky because I was in the talent development program of them as well,
right?
And I was have a chance to be transitioned into the rotation program in the United States, and I have a training there for like every year for 3 times, 2 weeks per time.
Where did you go?
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey. Yeah. Do you remember where? I just don't remember where.
It's the headquarters of Johnson & Johnson.
Which is where? I don't remember.
It's New Jersey. It's in that state, but I'm not sure.
It's okay.
I cannot remember the name of the town.
I'm just curious. Yep. I lived in New Jersey for a year when I was in middle school and then a year after I graduated from college.
Oh, I remember it. It's New Brunswick.
New Brunswick.
New Brunswick, yeah.
Got it. Okay, fair enough. Go ahead. And so you did that for a couple of years, but what got you interested in like starting your own business or getting involved in the startup world?
Yeah, well, when I was there, I have a chance to collaborate with HR team as well because I was sent to do the training there, right? I was trained in US, and then after that, when I was transitioned back to Thailand, my plant manager asked me to expand the knowledge that I got from that training and teach and
Other
train
people.
all the people at the plant.
I understand.
So I got the chance to work with HR team, and which is what I was already loved to do, because in my background in bachelor degrees, I did a lot of coaching to all the juniors in extracurricular activities, for example,
Okay.
that student committee thing.
Yes.
So I know that I love teaching, and I
Okay.
know that I love sharing. So with that background, I managed to use that kind of skill and apply it in Johnson & Johnson as well.
Got it.
And when I was doing that for like 1 or 2 years, I started to love it and starting to ask myself, well, is this my true career path within the business? And I was thinking to do something new as well.
Yeah. So was your dad also, you said your dad was an engineer, but was your family a family of entrepreneurs as well? Like, did your dad have his own business?
Yes, he used. I think my dad was a truly entrepreneur because he changed many business, and he's a business owner.
Got it.
So I think I got some part of it from him as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're sitting there in Johnson & Johnson going, okay, I learned a lot. And now I think I found the thing that I want to do.
Yes.
So now let me just go out and do it.
Yes, and that happens because that's an opportunity comes in as well.
What year was this? Do you remember?
It was 2016.
Okay. So not that long ago, but long enough ago that you had a lot of
Yes.
experience doing it. Go ahead.
Yes, so I got a chance from my former teachers when I was in Bangkok Christian College, the school that I was in, the college that I was in. So she was finding the one who can comes into the school and coach their student to send them to do the business case competition.
Got it.
And
Okay.
I was close with her.
Right.
So she asked me if I can do that because she know that I'm in Johnson & Johnson and I have some background in business and I have some background that comes into the school and teach all the juniors. So she asked me to do that.
So it really feels like you found your thing,
Yeah.
right? So when did BASE get started?
It started right at that moment.
Right at that
Yeah,
moment,
so-
you're just sitting there going,
so-
okay. And what does it mean, BASE Playhouse?
So BASE Playhouse. So we spent many times come up with the name. So BASE is actually the last option that we decided to focus on. BASE is like the foundations, right?
Okay, the base.
And also it's like a base camp. It's like a camp where a young generation students can escape from their classical classroom.
Right, and why Playhouse? Because if I just look at BASE Playhouse, I think of like acting, like a place where I would put on a play.
Well, we meant to make it feel like that.
Really?
Yeah. So because our first prototype in this business idea was to go into that school, and what we used at that prototype is to create a business simulation game, which is a play-based learning. So
go ahead.
we value that methodologies of creating a fun and meaningful learning.
Where does that come from though? Like, did Johnson & Johnson do that, or was it just something you came up with on your own?
It was an inspiration. Part of it was an inspiration from Johnson & Johnson as well.
Right.
And part of it was my own experience when I was doing a lot of coaching and mentoring in the university time.
Got it. So when did you start teaching people outside of students, right? You teach students as well,
Yes.
but you also have a corporate teaching
Yes.
thing too. What is that like? And what is it like approaching a corporate and saying, we're a bunch of kids,
Yeah.
but we're going to teach you something that you don't already know about what?
Yeah. So because of I have my first experience in teaching corporate level when I was in Johnson & Johnson, right? But the first customer, I mean, the first users that came into us at BASE Playhouse, they came into us because of our methodologies, not our expertise.
What does that mean?
It's because we use the play-based learning and gamification.
And what kind of company was interested? And did they come to you, or did you go and sell to them and they're like, hey, this is pretty interesting?
The first customer, they came to us.
Really?
Because of our value, that value of gamification and play-based learning.
What kind of company was it?
Our first company was banking company. It's financial industry.
So interesting. And is this banking company, we don't have to say who it is, or you can if you want, but have they always been this progressive, or did you just kind of find the right person? Do you know what I mean? Who said, we need to up our game or something with the training that we're doing?
Well, we haven't thought about any corporate training at that part because we were
Really?
focusing on young children, right?
Right.
Well, it was because the one that approached me, it was my graduated senior in Chulalongkorn University.
Got it.
So it's like a reference and referral.
And how did that go?
it was great. And it was a very eye-opening opportunity to let us reconsider our strategy as well.
What does that mean though? Like what kind of strategy did you have to
Because
reconsider?
we haven't focused on in corporate training, but after that happened, we're starting to ask ourselves, is it possible to expand our methodologies and scale it into corporate level?
So what does that mean? Do you want to talk about the methodologies in more detail?
Yeah.
I understand gamification, and maybe you can define that, but I want to understand this, what did you call it, like game-based or play-based learning? Can you talk to me about that?
Sure. So basically what we usually do is that we have these three methodologies that we use in every design that we do.
Go ahead.
So it's instructional design. It's like recreating the learning experience using the target base. So you know where to put people, you know what is the expectation of competencies that people need to do. What should they do? And then we decompose those competencies into knowledge, skill, and mindset.
Knowledge, skill, and mindset.
It's like a three major combinations to create the competence of people.
I want to dig deeper here.
Yeah.
The knowledge thing. So what you're saying is basically you create a bespoke,
Yes.
I don't want to say class, but environment for every team that you're coaching or that you're teaching.
Yes.
Right, because you have to give them specific knowledge.
Yep.
So you have to work really closely, I guess, with their
Yes.
management teams to figure out what that knowledge is. But knowledge alone isn't good enough.
You're correct.
So then you have to teach them skills.
Yes, we need to let them practice skill.
So how do you do that? Because I want to get to mindset in a second, because I think that's also important. But the knowledge is actually pretty easy to understand.
Deliver, yeah.
That's easy, right? And all relative. But how do you teach the skills when you're not in that environment on a day-to-day basis? What do you have to do to learn that first?
So first, you need to know what are those skills first to create. For example, if we want someone to drive a car,
Right.
for example,
Go ahead. I like this already.
knowledge of traffic lights, how to operate the car, where's the wheel, where's the brake, where's the accelerator, that is all part of the knowledge, right? But the part of the skill, only that kind of knowledge, you cannot let only those cannot allow you to drive a car successfully.
Go ahead.
So you need to have a driving hour. For example, like a flight simulator, if you were a captain, you need to have a flight simulator time, right? So you need to practice and hands-on to link those knowledge into your muscle memories.
Right. So this is a great example. And I love the fact that you've chosen driving, because I always say nobody learns how to drive a car by reading the manual.
Yep.
You've got to get behind the wheel, press the pedals, figure it out, make some mistakes, turn on the windshield wipers instead of the turn signal kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I've thought about this a lot. But once you do that, the tricky part is when you come up against a team of people or even an individual that says, that's not the way we do that here. Right? I've been driving for a while. I don't need you to tell me how hard to press the accelerator. How do you change the mindset?
Yeah. So
This is the hardest part, no?
Yes. It's the hardest part and also the most important part as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So basically, in every class that we did, we need to do the mindset change first. First, before we entering the skills and the knowledge.
Really?
To make sure that they are open enough to change the way that they are learned, right?
So how do you do that?
So basically, mindset is the technique that we use is the comparative experience.
Go ahead.
For example, if you believe in something, right, and you think that is correct, all you need to do is that to create a simulated environment to make sure that what they believe is wrong, and let them experience that by themselves. And when they do that, they automatically change the mindset. It's not like we're telling them to change the mindset, but they know by their own. But it's our job to create those environments to let that happen.
So this is a great metaphor for parenting.
Yeah.
I don't want to make an equivalency, right? Because you're not parenting 40-year-olds. But a lot of parents forget this when they're dealing with a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. I want to do this. So I tried to do this with my daughter. That's okay. Go ahead and do that. And create like this pathway.
Yeah.
And these are like the electrified fences, right?
Yes.
And if you get close, you get hurt. So you don't go there. And I'm not saying we don't hurt our kids, yeah? But the idea is you change their mindset by letting them experience the wrongness.
Yes.
That's really cool. Do you think that because I wrote this down. You want to break down this experience into its component parts, right? This sounds like very engineering to me.
Yes.
Is that fair? Like, is there a connection between all this stuff you learned as an engineer and all the conversations maybe you had with your dad, who's also an engineer, saying, if I can just break this thing down into its component parts, I can then figure out how to solve this problem?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
It's totally linked with when I reflected back with my experience. Actually, the engineering experience, both in master degree and bachelor degree, did shape a lot of my thinking process.
Interesting. And do you think it comes out? Do you listen to the terminology they're using? Does it come out in the things that you're saying? And you're like, oh God, that's engineering school talking?
Yes.
Really?
It happens all the time.
Happens all the time. So let me ask you this. What are the things that you've learned, right? Because you definitely sound like a guy that learns stuff, right? And we said this before we started recording, but I don't think you can be a great teacher, instructor, professor, ajan, whatever you want to say, without being not just a great learner, but an interested learner. Right? So what are the types of things you've learned where, remember you said this, when I graduated, I knew everything.
Yeah.
And then as you learn more, you're like, I didn't know anything. But can you just think about maybe some of the things that you've learned over time, particularly as it relates to how BASE teaches and instructs other people? Like, what are the things that maybe you thought you knew, but you didn't know?
Well, the first one, I think, is the process and the methodologies that we use.
Okay.
So when we first founded BASE Playhouse, our first product and our first service, our first course was like, when I look back into it, it was like very improvised.
Improvised, just like, I don't know.
Theory into it. It's just design everything based on your instinct and your experience.
Right.
Well, but when you did that for like 2 or 3 years afterwards,
right,
there are many experiences that you have with those many audience. For example, corporate is different.
Everyone is different, right?
Yes, and for students are different as well.
Absolutely.
And when you study more and more about learning design process, actually, there's a methodology on this because it is based back on human learning process.
So what did you do? Did you go back and study learning and teaching?
Yes.
Where did you do that? Or did you just read on your own?
So when we founded BASE Playhouse and it started for like 1 year, I decided to pursue my online courses in gamification.
In gamification.
Because I know that was very important and that is our core value of BASE Playhouse. So I started to pursue that theoretical learning to make sure that I can figure it out everything and make sure that I can put everything based on my instinct back into those jigsaw that put together in theory.
Got it.
And it's making the edge of what my experience was.
Did teaching the corporates also help you teach the next generation of students as well? Are you still doing that too?
Yes, we are still.
So you do those two things together?
Yes.
And do you think when you go and teach, I'm just going to pick a number, like 38, 39-year-olds, it helps you teach? How old are the kids that you teach?
16 to 18.
Yeah, so like half the age or less than half the age. It's a big gap. Does it help you there too?
Actually, it's totally different.
Really?
Yeah, because what we're focusing is totally different because the attention span, this is going quite into a little bit of detail. So
Please.
if the attention span of adults for example, is much longer than the kids. So what is happening is that when we are teaching the adults, what you really need to focus is the application point and theoretical part of it to make sure that they understand it and they can map those with the experience.
Got it.
But for kids,
no experience.
It's about the fun.
So it's more about the fun.
It's about the fun, but they have to learn something out of the fun, right? But the main motivation there is the fun because they don't have that long attention span. If it's not fun, they will get bored and the learning stops.
Right. So in your experience, do you notice that like as people get older, their attention span gets longer?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not saying that like this generation has an attention span shorter.
It's not a generation.
It's just an age thing. So when you were 16, you had the similar attention span, even though you didn't have the sort of distraction of your mobile phone going off all the time, right? It's just an age thing.
Yes.
Because you're like a sponge. You're just taking in all this stuff.
Yes.
So there's a lot more going on.
You're right.
Whereas when you're an adult, you're just like, I'm just doing this thing.
Yeah, because you have a focus on what you want to achieve in your learning path.
Fair enough. Okay, so it's interesting, right? So you have to develop like completely separate products for both of these things.
Yes, it's totally different experience, but I love it because I managed to have some of my thinking process in engineering and take that into learning perspective of it as well.
Yeah,
and because I love teaching and sharing I love to know how it works.
Can we back up for a second though and talk about like how would you define gamification? Because it's not just playing games, right?
Right. So gamification is the concept of when you're using that same mechanic of game design and you use that to motivate people, because what you get from playing game is fun and entertainment, right?
Sure.
But when you're talking about game design, the whole purpose of it is to create a fun experience.
Right.
But for gamification, you use that same methodologies and design principle, but the outcome, the expected outcome, is to change some kind of behaviors.
To change behavior
In other contexts, in real life context,
Got
not
it.
just the entertainment.
Sure. So can you give me an example?
Yes, sure. For example, if the board game, for example, that is very game based, right? It's a game that you play for fun. But for example, if you apply those mechanics into gamification, you might create a board game that change mindset and change behavior of people to drive more safely, for example.
Right. So let me give you an example. There's a company called Jam.
Yeah.
Okay, JAMM. And what they do is they're trying to improve your driving. So I love the fact that you brought this up. And I've interviewed their data scientist and the head of the company, the CEO. And what they do is they, at your request, they install a camera in your car. And that camera just watches you drive. And it's got a two-way camera on it. And you agree to this, right? So it follows what you're doing on the road, but it also follows your facial expressions and like your manner when you're driving. So if you get really mad, it tells you. And then later what you do is you download it onto your phone and you get to play a driving game that then tries to change your behavior. So it gamifies the learning around driving, because everybody thinks they're a great driver.
Yeah.
Except for me, I'm a terrible driver. Like I can't even play the driving games without dying in the first 3 minutes. But it's the same idea.
It's the same idea.
And later on, they use it for insurance purposes as well. But the whole idea is you don't know really anything about yourself until somebody else kind of shows it to you through this gamification process. And then that's meant to change your behavior.
Yes. And in gamification process, that is called feedback loop. So
Go
you
ahead.
create a feedback loop which can tell the feedback to the audience to let them change their behavior subtly.
Right.
Change their behavior.
But again, this gets back to parenting. Do your homework is never going to work.
No.
Because they're just not going to do it.
Yes.
But if you can gamify the process and learn this
would
early,
work.
it
Yes.
always works. It almost
Yes.
always works.
Yes.
Right? So tell me this. Is there anything that your team has done, like over time, that's just made you feel such a sense of accomplishment? Do you know what I mean? Where it wasn't necessarily like, oh, we made a ton of money, which is great, or, you know, we did something else, but this feeling of like your team just looked around and said, I didn't think that was going to happen, but it did, kind of thing?
There are plenty of moments of that. I will choose some of it.
That's awesome, though. Go ahead.
The first one was our first prototype at the moment that BASE Playhouse was founded, and we know that it works.
Right.
So when I was back in my old school, right? So I bring this kind of the founding team with me to create those experience, and we use this business simulation game to let them play around with it and have some kind of soft skill training to let them play and explore it. At the end of the class, so some of the students came to us and told us that, well, this is very awesome. Why wouldn't we have some kind of this kind of class in our school?
Right.
Because it changed a lot of our mindset, and it let us know what are our strengths and how to apply them.
I just got a little chill.
Yes, me too. So at that moment, we know that, wow, the thing that we designed, it worked.
It worked.
And it really makes some impact to all the students. And that was the moment that we asked ourselves, is it possible to create BASE Playhouse and make this scalable to our
It feels
students?
great, doesn't it?
Yes.
And
That is the first moment.
Yeah, it feels really, really great. Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, it's actually that there are plenty of moments, but that was the first one.
That's the seminal moment. I want to ask you this too. You have all these smart people that are working in BASE Playhouse. You understand the way gamification works. You're talking to senior people at corporates. You're teaching kids how to do stuff. You're building products, and some of those products have to be sort of tech related. Do you have a dev team? And the reason why I'm thinking about this is because a lot of products get built when really smart people are doing kind of other things, and they're like, hey, you know what? With all the stuff that we've learned, maybe we could build this thing too. Do we have the skills and the ability and the internal core competency to do that? So do you have a dev team? Do you build other things?
Yes. So when we founded BASE Playhouse, our one of our first shareholders batch, one of them was an experienced developer. So because we know that technology was would be one of the core competencies that our team must have. And in the current time at BASE Playhouse, we also have our full-time developers.
Okay.
And also we have some outsourced team as well. So
Okay.
it depends on their workload and projects. That
I
we want
understand.
to
And is your
run.
outsourced team in Thailand?
Yes, in Thailand.
Interesting. Go ahead.
So that was our team, and you're totally right. So there are many products that we're starting to build onto that and use technology as an accelerator to scale them.
Yes. So can you give me an example of a good one that you like?
So the first one that we did was the business simulation, of course.
Of course.
Back 3 to 4 years ago, we
Right.
used the technology to do the algorithm as well. But now what we are focusing is the scene, the scene platform.
Scene.
Yes.
So what does scene do?
So scene is basically, we ask the question that we have been building soft skill and competency for like 3 years.
Right.
One of the pitfall of creating and building someone a better person to doing of all of those competencies is not knowing where they stand.
Yeah.
We cannot measure how good they are, especially the competency or skills that is very intangible, like soft skill leadership, problem solving.
Sure.
This kind of skill that is very hard to touch on.
It is.
Yeah. So with those questions, we ask the question: is it possible to create some kind of tools and process to capture and measure those competencies?
And does it have a gamification aspect as well?
Yes,
Okay.
we started off with gamification. We did it offline first.
Offline.
In a board game.
So just like testing a bunch of different
Testing and
things. This is
prototyping.
interesting. You tested with a board game.
Yes.
So you can actually map out the sort of journey, for lack of a
Yes.
better term. And
Yes.
once you know that and can test it and iterate, because on a board you can do it easily.
Yes, and also the board game is like a simulation. You can
Right.
create a fixed environment.
But plus
for
everybody
leaders.
knows how to do that too.
Yeah.
I mean, not knows how to build it, but knows how to
Use it.
play a
Yeah.
board game, right?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And with that process, so we validated using that tool, and then we know that well it works. We tested with our pilot partners in the company, so we use that in some of our clients.
Did
big
they know
companies.
you were testing this when you were doing it?
They
Not
didn't
yet.
know.
Not really though, right?
Yeah.
No, but this is interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we tested that, and also we validated whether is it accurate enough, and we have a yes from the leadership team from the corporates, because they come into the experience and they also joining the experience, and then when we give them the report, they say, wow, it matched with our experts' eyes.
So what is the end game? Not the end game necessarily, but what's the point of building this tool? Is
So,
it just to
yeah.
measure stuff or?
No, because in the learning process, what we know is that measuring part, the evaluation part, is totally important to build the personalized learning experience. If we know the individual skill, where they are at, and know exactly what are the skill gaps that they have, we can create a personalized experience to let them achieve better.
Ah, so is it for individual training, or is it in reverse where the corporates that you're working with can do an analysis on, let's say, a potential candidate,
Yes.
and then find out if that person is hireable, and even if they don't have the right skill, but maybe they have the right mindset, and then they can get trained on the skills?
You're totally right, because the application of this is tremendous. So when we know how to measure them, when we know their status, it can lead us to a better talent development in corporate.
Got it.
And also a better recruitment in corporate as well. And also a long-term career path building for one individual as well, because we can transform their competency into big data.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you have a data team as well?
We are building it.
Really? And
Yeah.
is that an interesting thing for you as an engineer to try to understand like how machine learning works, how ML ops work? Because ML ops are not straightforward, right?
Yes.
Like just having a bunch of data is
Yes.
kind of meaningless. You have to
Yes.
know how to process all of it.
Yes, and that was the hard part as well.
Tell me.
So in this year, we are also looking and exploring the ML part, the machine learning part.
Got it.
But it's not that easy,
No.
because what we are doing is that we need to transform those data and map that with learning process of human as well. Because you need to map the process of, for example, if you want to know this person can communicate well or not,
Right.
you need to know the elements of the communication process. For
Right.
example, the eye contact, the body gesture, for example, the dynamic of voice, right?
Right.
And you need to have that knowledge and transfer those knowledge into the correct data set. So that was the hard part.
Yeah, I mean that's a never-ending process,
Yeah.
though, right? Like you're not done building that,
Yeah.
and then you just move on to
It's
something
on
else.
progress, yeah.
This is always in progress, though,
Yes.
right? That's fascinating. Okay, this was awesome. I really want to thank you for coming in and doing this. Maytwin Pitipornvivat.
Thank you so much, Michael.
The CEO and the co-founder of BASE Playhouse. This was really super.
It was a very nice experience to share.
Thank you.
Here as well. Thank you so much.
TDPK Podcasts, Thailand GameChanger. Inside the minds of Thailand's innovators.